If one is scarred and filled with hate, a mask can be worn to restore your old state. But if you fall from grace and your morality dies, then what does the mask truly hide? Hey everyone, welcome back. Despite only being a single season, it's pretty amazing how much story they were able to pack into Tron Uprising. This show originally premiered in 2012 as a prequel to Tron Legacy, the 2010 sequel to the original 1982 Tron film. It aired only on Disney XD, which was a newer TV channel at the time. This, combined with the Tron IP being largely discarded in favor of Star Wars in the 2010s, resulted in the show only getting a single 19-episode season. Despite this, it's gotten a bit of a resurgence in popularity due to the unique animation style, fantastic voice cast, complex story, and its overall quality. It focuses on the now old and damaged program Tron training his new apprentice Beck to take his place as the next protector of the Grid, a digital world inside of a computer. A big reason why this show is so beloved is because of its focus on Tron as a character. Even though he was the namesake of the franchise, Tron never really had a true main character role before this show. He was always relegated to a secondary character or a side character, or just doesn't appear at all. It's why this show works so well for me, and I've been wanting to make a video on something from this series for a while, and I did attempt one on this same character in the past, but I think it's about time I give Dyson, Clue's best soldier, the treatment he deserves. Despite only appearing substantially in the two-part episode arc Scars, Dyson serves as possibly one of the most important characters in the entire show because of his complex relationship with Tron. Because Tron was barely in Tron Legacy, the series had room to expand on his backstory and relationships, and I think the creation of Dyson really aids his character while also adding in a fascinating character to the Tron lore. This video script has been on the back burner since 2024, and I'm glad I've finally gotten around to finishing it. It definitely needed some rewrites, but I think the skills I've honed by making more of these character analysis videos gives me more confidence that I'll handle Dyson well. This video is going to contain heavy spoilers for the entire Tron franchise, so I highly recommend watching both the films and the show to experience the story for yourself before watching this video. If you enjoy, please like the video, subscribe, and drop a hype if you can. Doing this helps me out immensely and lets me know you want to see more like this. Comment down below if there are any characters from Tron that you'd like to see me do an analysis on specifically. I have some ideas, but I'd be interested in hearing what you'd all like to see. So without further ado, let's dissect one of the most interesting secondary antagonists we meet on the Grid, shall we? So, to talk more about Dyson, I have to explain a bit of world building first. Kevin Flynn, aka the protagonist of the original Tron 1982 movie, created a digital utopia inside of a computer called the Grid. He made a digital copy of himself to help run it named Clue, and brought over Tron himself from the original system as his lead security program. The trio ran the Grid smoothly until new beings began appearing called isomorphic algorithms, or ISOs for short. These are programs that were not created by Flynn. The Grid itself created them, meaning that in this universe, they're not only the first true artificial intelligence, but they also might be considered a new species of life. This causes a whole lot of unrest in the Grid between the programs created by Flynn and these new ISOs. This eventually resulted in Clue, who is obsessed with perfectionism, betraying Flynn and Tron to take control of the Grid and use his newly built regime to wipe out almost all of the ISOs. Flynn was forced to run into the Grid, and Tron during his battle with Clue sustained incredible damage, which resulted in him being unable to fight like he used to. His only means of survival is to continually rest in an energy charging tube a couple times a day, but this doesn't heal his scars. It only temporarily relieves him of the pain and makes them fade for a short while. This is why Tron is training Beck during the events of the series to take his place. Now, in the time period of the show, Clue's regime is slowly taking over the Grid, and it's up to Tron and Beck to start an uprising against the forces that have invaded Beck's home city of Argonne. The ISOs are a big part of what makes Dyson's character important, so I figured it was worth explaining them first. Now we can get into Dyson himself. To make more sense of the timeline of events, we're going to look through Dyson's history in chronological order, starting with the flashbacks we see throughout the two-parter before moving into the modern-day events. The first flashback in this two-parter is experienced by Tron when he first sees Dyson arriving in Argonne. It's important to note that what triggers this flashback is Beck mentioning mentioning that Tron's scars are getting worse. You're going to notice a lot of symbolism when it comes to his scars, but we'll get to it when we get to it. As the flashback begins, we see Tron on the grid before Clue's betrayal, and this is where we are first introduced to Dyson. We find out that Dyson is one of the security programs under Tron's leadership. While it's implied that Dyson is his second in command, Tron also considers him a good friend. In the present, Tron has stated multiple times that he doesn't keep friends, so seeing him be so comfortable and friendly with Dyson in these flashbacks is kinda surprising. The reason why Dyson came to him is because there's been some unrest in the ISO district, so the two assemble their team of security programs to go and calm the crowd down before a riot occurs. Something to remember for later is that Dyson doesn't seem bothered by the ISOs while he talks about them. He doesn't speak about them negatively, he only comments on how the masses of basic programs are becoming unrestful because of their existence. It's important to note how Dyson doesn't display any personal negative bias towards the ISOs during this flashback. It'll affect how we perceive his character in the future. Tron, Dyson, and the other security programs start to head over to the ISO district, but before they go anywhere, Tron says that he wants the crowd dispersed peacefully and explicitly tells the security force not to use their identity discs. To briefly explain, an identity disc is this circular ring on a program's back. It holds all their memories and can be detached to be used as a weapon. At first, the rest of the security force were resistant of this decision, but it was Dyson who reaffirms Tron's order. We then get a short scene where Tron says a quick thanks, and Dyson says,
"Anytime, old friend."
It really should be noted how the show is portraying Dyson and Tron's relationship. The two feel like proper friends, not just teammates. Dyson is someone that Tron trusts, someone that he can talk casually with, which is a strange thing to see since during the early half of the season, Tron displays distrust of everyone, even Beck for a while. Regardless, the security force rides through the grid until they make it to the ISO district, where we can see that, well, the ISOs aren't doing anything wrong. While the basics are shouting and yelling at them to go back where they came from, raising their fists in a violent manner, the ISOs don't really react. The only response one gives after being called a freak is that this is our home too. They don't match the other program's threatening tone, they just seem peaceful. Just in case we might be missing what the show is commenting on, let me phrase it like this. A bunch of peaceful, non-violent programs have moved onto the grid from a faraway land and are being threatened by the normal programs because they don't look like them. Despite them just wanting to live in peace on the grid, the other programs feel threatened since they have no idea where they came from. I think the allegory speaks for itself here. The security force arrive at the district, and Tron starts to calm the programs down by saying that Flynn intended for the grid to be shared by all programs, and they shouldn't dishonor his legacy. All was going well, until out of nowhere a disc was thrown from the ISO's side, de-resing a basic. We never see who threw the disc, they hid in the crowd and ran away, but this resulted in the basics charging at the ISOs, forcing the security programs to try and defend them with their riot shields. Unfortunately, it doesn't end up working out as the ISOs are de-resed one by one. But here's the thing, it's obvious that this mysterious disc thrower was meant to be expanded upon in a later season. The thrower is completely obscured, and none of the other ISOs attack the programs even when they were being de-resed. They're constantly presented as peaceful, non-violent beings. This makes me think it wasn't an ISO that threw the disc. There's a lot of theories that it might have been Clue who threw it, or one of his agents, or heck, maybe it was just an ISO who was doing it for the wrong reasons, but the way it's presented in the show is simple. It was a faceless nobody from the side of the ISOs, and that's how I want to treat it. The security force start to draw their discs as the mob attacks them, but Dyson repeatedly says not to use them, attempting to reaffirm his friend's order. Dyson does well fighting off the basics until this happens. Dyson! A program's disc flew at Dyson and struck him on the right side of his face. As Tron calls out to him, the flashback ends. The next flashback we'll see will show a very different Dyson compared to how he's been portrayed so far, but to see it, we have to move into the next section, where we will watch a monster develop. The next flashback we see is had by Dyson as he stares into Argon City, slowly transitioning to show the injury he sustained in the past. While Dyson did survive the attack, he was left with a deep, awful scar that completely destroyed his eye and most of the right side of his face. Now it should be mentioned how lucky Dyson is. Most other programs would have been de-resed if they were in his situation. Getting struck with a light weapon usually results in a program's code being destabilized, causing them to fall apart into cubes. Dyson is is extremely lucky to still be in mostly one piece, but that doesn't change the fact that he suffered a horrible, awful injury because of this event. In this flashback, Tron and Dyson are serving as security at the grid's portal point. This digital replica of Kevin Flynn's arcade connects the real world to the grid, and currently they are waiting for the arrival of Flynn to talk about the unrest involving the ISOs. And as we can see in both his body language and demeanor, something changed in Dyson after he received this injury, because in this flashback, he says this.
ISOs, like a disease, it keeps spreading.
The amount of disdain and hate in those words cannot be fully described. Dyson's feelings toward the ISOs have shifted to one of complete animosity. He never voiced any negative opinions about the ISOs before, but now all of a sudden he's saying things like this.
They're light lines. It's not right, and they were never written. They serve no purpose.
Later on in the episode, Dyson even goes so far as to say their mere existence perverts the grid, which is genuinely one of the most evil lines of dialogue I've ever heard come out of this series. What I find really interesting is Dyson is demonstrating how complex of an emotional situation this is. Dyson has received a horrible, traumatic injury. For almost any other program, a disc to the face means digital death. They rarely have to live on with battle scars. They either look visibly fine or they're derezzed. We don't see many programs in the series with scars like this, but I can only assume that it can turn them into bitter shells of themselves. But even taking all of this into mind, that doesn't justify him talking about the ISOs like their sub-program. He has placed most of the blame for this event onto their shoulders when the cause of his injury was because of one program. Hating an entire group of people for the actions of one person is obviously not morally correct. This is essentially a form of prejudice. Unfortunately, this is a line of thinking that many people in the real world fall into, because whether we think otherwise, we as humans are shaped by our personal experiences. And while the programs of the Tron universe are explicitly not meant to be human, their mirroring of the human condition and how flawed we really are has always been a theme of the series. It's represented very well here through Dyson. Dyson didn't feel strongly in any way about the ISOs until something directly happened to him that affected him negatively, so now he correlates the negative feelings of that event onto this group of programs. But if we look at the clip where Dyson gets his face slashed, we can see that the identity disk's color is blue. All of the ISO's colors are white. A basic is the reason why Dyson is scarred like this, not an ISO. But even if Dyson saw the color of this disk, which he probably didn't, I don't think he would care, because neither Dyson nor anybody else saw who threw the first disk, and to our knowledge, nobody saw who threw the disk that scarred his face. He doesn't have a specific person to blame. All he has to blame is the side the first disk came from, the ISOs. Let's focus again real quick here on Dyson with his damaged face. There's a lot of shots where we only see him from his scarred angle, and what's notable is that this is the side that faces Tron. He both figuratively and literally won't make eye contact with him. He's also much snappier in his responses, only being silenced begrudgingly because of Tron's role as leader. But why would he act so cold to his old friend? Well, he's acting this way because in the moment that scarred him, Dyson was following Tron's orders. To an extent, he blames Tron for his wound. If Dyson had his disc, he would have at least had a chance to block the incoming attack, but he wanted to follow the orders of his friend. The scar that blocks Dyson's eyesight from Tron's signifies the wedge that's formed in their relationship in a really creative way visually. This situation is crafted really well. It shows how complex emotions are when we're hurt. Dyson being mad at Tron is somewhat understandable. We as the audience understand why he's more distant from him. But we also know that Dyson's newfound hatred of the ISOs is unwarranted. You can't blame the entire group of programs for the actions of one. I won't dwell on this much further, but all you need to know is now Dyson has a prejudice against the ISOs, and he isn't exactly chummy with Tron at the moment. Clue eventually arrives to meet with Tron and Flynn, and I love how he drives his bike slowly through the crowd of ISOs. He doesn't call out for them to move or anything, he just drives through and doesn't wait for them to get out of the way. Really cool visual representation to show how little he thinks of them. Flynn arrives through the portal and starts to talk with Tron and Clue about the ISOs, until they are interrupted by Dyson. Dyson has a moment where he talks to Flynn about the ISOs, asking him to do something about them. This is where we get his line where he says that they pervert the grid and that they need to be erased from it. But Flynn responds that the ISOs have just as much of a right to be on the grid as any other program. After all, he didn't make them, the grid did. I think this was the final straw for Dyson. Flynn showcases his care for all of his programs. After all, he remembered Dyson's name even though he was just one of many security programs. But his response wasn't what Dyson was looking for. He was hoping that his creator would see things his way, see the visual representation of what he thinks the ISO's continued existence would mean. Keep in mind though, this is the same Flynn who has already exponentially grown as a person since the ISO's arrival. While Clue is still focused on creating the perfect system, Flynn has already come to the realization that perfection is impossible. That's why he doesn't fix Dyson's face despite him having all the power to do so. Imperfections do not matter to Flynn anymore. But I speculate that Flynn also knows that fixing Dyson's face wouldn't make him any better. Dyson still has those experiences that make him feel the way he does. If he did fix his face in this scene, Dyson would still hold on to his hate of the ISOs. Nothing would really change. His resentment towards them would be the same. It's like trying to slap a band-aid on something that needs stitches. Dyson needed more time to heal emotionally, so instead of trying to fix him physically, Flynn attempted to give him a new perspective. But I would actually argue that this might have been the worst option, because now Dyson resents the ISOs, Tron, and now his own creator. You see, Flynn is still years away from being the wise sage he was in Legacy. He's still too busy focusing on the big picture and missing the important details with Dyson. Fixing his face wouldn't have solved the problem, but it could have helped the problem. From there, he could have adjusted and been guided towards a better mindset. It could have been a start. But again, Flynn misses the details in favor of the big picture. And now Dyson just became even angrier and more resentful than before. The flashback ends abruptly as we see Dyson in the present with his face fixed. And as we move into the next section, we'll see what this final straw breaking resulted in. And trust me, it's anything but good. The next flashback is had by Dyson right after he subverts a stealthy attack by Beck. Directly after he does this, he tells someone that he not only knew Tron, he watched him die. After this, we move into the flashback, where we get this scene. Anyone who has watched any piece of Tron media knows what this is. This is where Clue betrays Flynn and Tron, resulting in Flynn vanishing into the grid and Tron being damaged and captured by Clue. After this, Clue would build his regime and kill off most of the ISO population. There's been 4 separate versions of this event shown off in different Tron media, one from Flynn's memory in the movie Tron Legacy, one from Anod's perspective in the video game Tron Evolution, one from Tron's perspective in the comic book Tron Betrayal, and of course, Dyson's flashback from the TV show Tron Uprising. In this version of Clue's betrayal, we can see it mostly follows the events of the others. Clue asks if he's still to create the perfect system. Flynn says, yeah, and then after flipping on his helmet, his blackguards come out of hiding to engage Flynn and Tron. However, there is an added detail in this version. We find out that Dyson is the one that ordered the guards to attack Tron and Flynn. Clue putting his helmet on was a signal for Dyson to send out the blackguards. Just like in the other versions, Tron fights off and de-reses Clue's soldiers, but is damaged and overtaken by Clue himself. But in this version, we get a completely brand new scene where Clue stands over Tron, wounds riddling his body. Clue says that Flynn was never his target, it was Tron he was after. Dyson then reveals himself, where we get to see that his face has now been repaired. Clue gave Dyson what his creator wouldn't. In his words, he made him perfect again. Dyson has betrayed his home, his creator, and his friends all in one day. Of course, it makes sense that Clue would fix his face. He's all about perfection. But it's what Dyson says after Tron is on the ground that interests me. Tron says that Clue betrayed them, but Dyson says this in response.
Flynn betrayed us. Betrayed all of us.
This is where I want to talk a little about the voice actor, as his performance in this flashback always astounds me at how good he portrays this turn. Dyson in Tron Uprising is voiced by veteran voice actor John Glover. While he has voiced several famous characters in the past, such as the Riddler and Batman, his role in Uprising is not the first time he voiced a Tron character. John Glover also voiced the villain Abraxas from Tron Evolution 2 years earlier. I want to briefly touch on Abraxas' story in this game, because it has heavy parallels to Dyson's character in Uprising. Abraxas was formerly an ISO named Jalen, who was adopted by Kevin Flynn to learn more about the nature of the ISOs. Jalen was at one point given a special identity disc by Clue after winning an arena tournament, which caused him to become corrupted. The tampered disc deleted his previous identity as Jalen and transformed him into the sickly green computer virus known as Abraxas. The plan was for Clue to use Abraxas to infect the other ISOs with his computer virus, destroying them in the process. Dyson and Abraxas being portrayed by the same voice actor feels oddly fitting, as they are in a way both corrupted because of Clue's influence. Jalen was forced into becoming Abraxas because of Clue's direct interference, whereas in Dyson's case, he grew a disdain of the people he used to trust, and Clue took advantage of that to turn him to his side. But there is one massive key difference between these two characters. The identity of Jalen was fully destroyed and turned into Abraxas. He had no choice in becoming the monster he became. But Dyson, he had a choice. Clue's influence definitely didn't help, but he still chose to be the Judas of this story. He sold out his friend, his creator, and his home, but not just because of his prejudice and bitterness, it's because he genuinely believes that he's the good guy in this story. Dyson truly believes that Flynn is the one who betrayed him, who betrayed the grid by allowing the ISOs to continue existing. He doesn't see his own actions as evil, he thinks they're just. From his point of view, he's trying to save the grid. Just before this flashback began, he said this:
I was there when Tron and Flynn nearly destroyed the grid.
And that's so telling. He genuinely believes, even years in the future, that he was doing the right thing. He doesn't even comprehend how what he's doing could be evil because from his perspective, he's the one trying to save his home. He believes that what he's doing is right because of his personal experiences, and he fears that these will be everyone's experiences if the ISOs continue to exist. This is a genuinely chilling line of thinking, which echoes some dangerous real-world events. Clue then delivers one more shattering blow to Tron, whereas we flash back to the future. We're going to move right along into the next flashback, which happens a little later on in the second episode. After he was damaged, Tron was placed in a repurposing tube where he watches something truly horrifying. In Tron Legacy, we got a small look at the reprogramming process that Clue uses to create his blackguards by deleting their memories and repurposing them to feel barely any emotion to the point where most of them are just husks. But this is the first time we actually see the process, where the memories of these programs are ripped away and replaced with this much darker purpose. The pose the process forces the programs into looks very similar to the famous Tron pose, the primary visual signature of the franchise that's featured in every Tron project. The pose itself has always been used to represent something positive, whether it be renewal or purification, but here it's presented almost like a dark baptism. The programs being repurposed act like they're in a trance, forced to look into the air as their memories are ripped away and replaced with foreign code. It's very uncomfortable to watch, and it does a number on Tron's psyche. Tron, however, is not repurposed like the others. Instead, he is sucked through a tube and is locked down to an operating table face to face with Dyson.
Hello? Old friend?
The flashback ends here, but it picks up again from Dyson's perspective only a few minutes later. In this flashback, we see Dyson cutting into Tron, torturing him and trying to break him. A guard outside says that everyone else besides Tron has been screaming, signaling to the audience that this isn't the first time Dyson has done something like this. While Dyson is changing his torture tool, he talks about the repurposing, and that everyone on Tron's security detail has now been turned into a blackguard. Tron is Flynn's last soldier. There's something really uncomfortable in how Dyson acts so nonchalant about it, so lax. You could even say he's almost happy that this is happening. These are people he served alongside for potentially years, and he doesn't show any care about their lives, their personalities. He's completely fine with them being turned into emotionless husks. Dyson continues on, saying he doesn't want Tron repurposed. He wants him to join Clue willingly. It's also notable that he's still calling him old friend, even if it's in a mocking tone. Dyson still seems to have some twisted care for Tron. He wants him to see his side of things. When Tron declines, Dyson reacts harshly. He can't understand why he wouldn't join them, and attempts to echo Clue's ideology, saying that only through perfection can programs be truly liberated. Of course, considering that he's actively torturing Tron and slicing into his code while he tries to convince him to join his side, we as the audience see how insane he sounds. He just aided in wiping out an entire entire group of programs, which goes completely against this ideology. Clue isn't liberating programs, he's de-resing and subjugating them. But keep in mind that Dyson still believes that what he's doing is the right thing. He doesn't see the ISOs as individuals, he only sees them as a problem that needed to be taken care of. In his mind, his actions aren't evil, just a means to an end, but from an outside perspective, we can see that he sounds and acts completely insane. He's a monster. Clue's repurposing has essentially erased the identities of countless programs, the same programs that Dyson swore to protect under Tron's leadership. And if we take what that blackguard said at face value, he's not only tortured Tron, he's tortured who knows how many other programs for seemingly no reason. He only cares about Tron joining willingly, he had no stated reason to torture the others. It's hard to call him anything less than a monster at this point. And this line delivery from Tron perfectly encapsulates Dyson's fall.
Clue didn't improve your face. He made you harder to look at.
Which is just so telling, because even though he looks perfect, he hasn't actually healed. Dyson still held on to his hate despite getting his face fixed. It didn't help him learn the error of his beliefs, it only reaffirmed them. Clue, the one who also hates ISOs, the one who also views them as a disease on his perfect system, is the one that gave Dyson what he wanted. A fixed face, an affirmation that his beliefs are the correct ones. So now his beliefs that the ISOs pervert the grid feel more solidified. Again, it's genuinely scary how much this can echo real-world actions. Dyson then grabs Tron's face and tells him that he's gonna show him what it's like to be imperfect, while raising a spinning handsaw. We see the after effects of Dyson's little lesson, and it's not pretty to look at. Dyson delivered a wound to Tron that perfectly mirrored his own, a horrible gash that destroyed his eye and most of the left side of his face, just like how Dyson's scar destroyed the right side of his face. There is no other reason for Dyson to have done this other than bitterness. He wanted Tron to feel exactly like how he felt, living with an awful scar that could only be fixed if he joined their side. From here, Tron is transported in a recognizer and presumably dies in an engine malfunction. Dyson watches this happen and for years believes Tron was dead. This ends Dyson's final flashback in the two-parter. Now, of course, we know that Tron does manage to escape alive. During the years after this event, the wounds that Dyson and Clue had left on Tron slowly turned into scars. The scars required Tron to stay in his energy chamber for a good while every day, and if he doesn't, they'll fester and he'll die. In that time, Tron found Beck became the Renegade, and the current events of the show began. We'll now head into the next section where we will move on from the flashbacks and focus on the antics Dyson gets into while in Argon City during the present the show takes place in. And we'll also see how his arrival affects Tron, for better or for worse. As we move back to the beginning of the first episode, Dyson makes a grand entrance in Argon, arriving in a unique lightship. Look at bro just aura farming for no reason. Dyson's ship moves through a checkpoint to scan for contraband, but the scan is halted, as he has been given the highest level of access by Clue. In his time serving Clue, he's become one of his highest ranking soldiers, paralleling how he used to be Tron's highest ranking security program. As the ship moves through the point, it trips one of Tron's secret alarms, sending him a notification in his secret hideout about Dyson's arrival. We watch as he visibly reacts in disbelief before his emotions slowly morph to anger. Then, in one of my all-time favorite visuals from this show, we see Tron's scar on his neck visibly get worse as he grits his teeth. Just the mere image of Dyson's face has caused his healing to regress. Dyson's ship docks in the carrier vessel of General Tesler, one of Clue's generals that was stationed in Argon to impose his rule. In Dyson's interactions with him and his two best soldiers, we can see that Tesler loathes him. Tesler as a character is obsessed with control. Throughout the events of the show, we see how badly he wants Argon in the palm of his hand, but Dyson is someone who can challenge this desire Tesler has to be the one in power, as he is his superior. So we get to watch Tesler be forced to suck up to someone for once. It's a pretty fun juxtaposition on his usual role as the main villain of the show. Dyson makes a joke about how he's here to fire Tesler and condemn him to the games, which is Clue's version of a Roman Colosseum. And while this is a joke, joke, I don't doubt that Dyson could and probably has done this to previous generals in the past. The looks on Tesla and his agents' faces says it all. Dyson says that the real reason he's here is to review the satellite ops and to look into the existence of the Renegade. This is the name that the public has been using for Beck, who's using the emblem and identity of Tron as a mantle to start his uprising. He's been causing a lot of problems for Tesla and his army, so Clue sent in his top man to see what's really going on. While they're talking, Tron and Beck watch from afar, scouting out Dyson. Tron says that Beck's goal is to capture Dyson, since he has vital intel on Clue, but Beck questions why he would need to. It would make more sense to take Dyson's disk, since they could simply look through it to find the info Tron needed. If they took him to the hideout, that means they would have to de-res him, which is not how Beck does things. Tron is a little different. He's always had a pretty straightforward relationship when it comes to de-resing. We see in many different forms of media that he's not against de-resing programs to defend himself or the people he cares about. In the first film, he's the one to throw his disc through Sark's head, for instance, and during Clue's betrayal, he cuts down the blackguards almost instantaneously. During the events of the show, it seems he's mostly given up on de-resing programs. That is, until these episodes. We can also visibly see that his scar has gotten worse, festering along his face and moving toward his eye. Dyson's arrival has sparked something in Tron. His demeanor towards Beck is much more serious, less of the harsh mentor he was in the early episodes, and more of an abrasive army general, almost like he's falling back into his role as a security program. After they scout him out, Tron runs a test on Beck in his simulation room to test his skills against a holographic Dyson. Of course, Beck does extremely well. He is the Renegade after all and was trained by Tron, but when Beck steals his disc, Tron orders him to finish the Dyson dummy. We don't see what happens afterward, but it visibly shakes Beck. This isn't how Tron mentored him in the past. We then get a brief scene of Dyson with two of Tesler's agents, but there's not much to analyze here involving him. He just stands there and a flashback starts up, so we're gonna move on to the next scene. Back at the hideaway, Tron considers going back into his energy chamber, his scars fading as he places his hand into the healing stream. But he decides against it, letting his scars fester even more. This is an important indicator to the audience on his mental state. Tron has the option to step back into his healing chamber at any time, but he isn't. He's actively choosing to let his scars grow worse. Remember this for when we talk about the end of this first episode. Beck sneak attacks Tron to prove to him that he can easily take Dyson's disc, but in response, Tron lashes out in anger. There's an interesting animation detail I want to call attention to. In this sequence, Beck starts to walk towards Tron in a friendly manner. Then once he notices how unusually angry he is, he takes a couple steps back in fear. Tron has been hard on Beck in the past, but not like this. Beck sees that there's something very wrong, and his suspicion will be confirmed in the next scene. We pick back up with Dyson, where he takes a stroll around one of Argon's buildings with Tesler's guards. Beck, meanwhile, is perched at the top of a sign, waiting to set off a smoke bomb to hopefully capture Dyson. All was going according to plan until Dyson shushed the guards, sensing something wrong. He then uses a unique ability to see the footsteps Beck took to place the smoke bomb in a nearby vent. Beck tries to set the bomb off early, but Dyson was able to grab it in time and throw it into the air. We then see Dyson staring at the spot Beck was just at, almost like he knows he was up there. While it's not confirmed, I think Dyson might have some sort of security sense. It's demonstrated a couple times in the show that Dyson can seemingly sense an attack right before it happens. Save for the first disc thrown at the ISO district incident, he's always had a keen sense of foreseeing some kind of danger, just like Tron, funny enough. I wonder if this is some kind of trait that all security programs have, the ability to detect and predict danger before it happens. It's just a theory, but it would explain how he can seemingly predict attacks before they happen. Either way, Beck goes undetected, and this is where Dyson says his line about watching Tron die, revealing Tron and Dyson's connection to Beck. After the flashback around Clue's betrayal, Beck returns to Tron's hideout to confront him. Tron's scar has now moved up to start overtaking his eye. His scars are getting worse. Beck asks if this is about the revolution or if it's about de-resing Dyson. Tron in response just pushes past him and tells Beck to stay out of it. Beck says that regardless of what he does, he's not letting Tron kill for revenge, to which Tron stuns him and takes the shell of the white Tron disc for himself. In any other episode, this would be a really cool moment where the mentor returns to his old mantle, but here, he's not doing it for a just cause or to save innocent people. He's doing it to murder someone for revenge. It's a very dark moment moment for his character, and with this, the first episode ends. Before we move into the next section, I want to focus for a moment on how Beck says that he's not letting Tron kill for revenge. Remember how I said Tron was always straightforward with de-resing? Well, I think that's what makes this line super interesting. Beck doesn't de-res, but he understands Tron has and probably will in the future. He's a security program, and sometimes you have to take drastic measures to protect innocent people. But this isn't like the times Tron has de-resed in the past. For lack of a better term, Tron is bloodlusted. He doesn't care about anything else except de-resing Dyson. He's ruining his friendship with Beck, he's throwing away his morals as a just protector, and he's neglecting his own health, all for the sake of revenge. To de-res as a last measure is one thing, but to de-res for the sole reason of revenge is another. But of course, this video is focused on Dyson, so I'll refrain from going further in Tron's analysis. If you all want a proper video going over Tron, let me know in the comments. Either way, with this episode wrapped up, we now move into the next section where we will see Tron and Dyson come face to face for the first time in a long time. The second episode opens up with Beck waking up from Tron's stun. After he wakes up, he chases after him on his light bike. The two have a pretty neat bike chase where Tron manages to strand Beck on the opposite side of a trench, though Beck does manage to slap a tracker on him. We then get a delightful scene where Dyson sits on Tesla's throne and talks to him about how he might need to stay in Argonne indefinitely. Seeing Tesla seethe is always satisfying. As Dyson gets up, he says he's excited to meet the Renegade for himself, and see, this is where something hit me. Dyson throughout these episodes has been repeatedly bringing up the Renegade unprompted, more so than the main directive he was in Argonne for. He doesn't seem all too interested in actually reviewing the satellite ops. I think Dyson let his true directive slip at the beginning of the first episode.
Well, I have to see for myself.
And that right there is the actual reason why Dyson is here. The Renegade is wearing the emblem of Tron, and Dyson believes he watched Tron die. So he wants to see if this Renegade can match up to his old friend's skills. He's not here for the satellites, he's here for the Renegade, and only the Renegade. After Dyson leaves the room and urges his little tour to continue, one of Tesla's agents take him to Argonne's cooling chambers. They start to malfunction, and he's left all alone, where Tron waits to attack him. Beck manages to talk to Tron before he engages Dyson, but it's obvious that Tron isn't wavering in his quest for vengeance. The two have a brief fight, resulting in Beck getting cuffed to a nearby railing. Tron tells him that the cuffs work on a timer, and that they'll disintegrate long after Dyson is dead. It's important to note something. Even while Tron is obviously not in a good mindset, he still cares deeply for Beck. All of his ways of stopping him have been mostly non-violent. He doesn't want to hurt him, but he also doesn't want Beck stopping him from getting his retribution. Tron then runs off to de-res Dyson, and Beck calls out to not end the revolution before it has a chance to start. Dyson walks through the cooling chambers, calling out for the Renegade to show himself. Again, he has this security sense where he can sense an attack before it happens. He uses his ability to track Tron's footprints, only to be led straight into a set of bombs lined up like Tron's emblem. I like how this little exchange shows us how Dyson is now fighting someone who's more his equal. I honestly think that if Beck ended up fighting the real Dyson, he would have lost. Dyson is at a very similar skill level to Tron, and I don't doubt that Beck would be overtaken in a one-on-one fight, hence why his initial plan was to sneak attack him. Either way, after another flashback, we get to see one of my favorite fights in the show, Tron versus Dyson. I highly recommend checking out the episode specifically for this fight. The full version is awesome, especially because Dyson uses this unique light chain attached to his disc so it functions more like a ball and chain. At one point in the fight, Dyson manages to pin Tron, where he goads him into showing his face, saying the real Tron wouldn't have given up so easily. This is what pushes Tron to eventually get the upper hand on Dyson, slicing the light chain and wielding both his and Dyson's disc at the same time. Once he beats Dyson down, Tron reveals his identity, where we see that his scars have gotten even worse. The scar on his face has now completely overtaken his left eye, giving it a white, glassy look, the kind of look a blinded eye would have. Dyson reacts in shock and horror the moment he sees Tron's face, saying he watched him die. In response, Tron says that he'll watch him die. Dyson then starts to talk to Tron about how he may have escaped, but he doesn't have much of a life to live. He perfectly predicts that he lives alone, having to go to an energy tube to fight off his wounds and stop himself from dying. And it's here where we find out that Dyson is the reason why he needs to do this. He added a modification to Tron's code as a failsafe if something like this happened. And just like he did in the past, he offers Tron the chance to join Clue in exchange for getting himself fixed.
I can fix you, make you perfect again, if you join us. I'd rather stay like this forever than be a puppet of a tyrant.
This exchange is more than just Tron showing his zeal and commitment to good, because unfortunately, as fans know, Tron does eventually end up getting repurposed and turned into the villain Rinzler, who, I want to note, also dual wields a pair of discs in the exact same way Tron is during this sequence. This entire fight has been a very dark foreshadowing to Tron's future as Rinzler. Some of the moves he uses against Dyson even parallel the moves he uses against Sam in Tron Legacy. He will end up becoming the puppet of a tyrant. He will end up being Clue's best soldier. Dyson isn't just a dark mirror of what Tron could become, he's what Tron will become. And Tron is very close to moving down that darker path as he raises Dyson in the air, his disc ready to strike. But before he does, the last flashback of the episode plays out, where we see how Tron was rescued by one of Clue's blackguards. This program is the one who proposed the revolution to Tron in the first place, paralleling Beck's words by saying to not end the revolution before it begins. This memory makes Tron deactivate his disc and drop Dyson, telling him that he's only alive to deliver a message. And this is where I want to take a moment and discuss Tron and Dyson's similarities and what ultimately makes them so different. Throughout this two-parter, we see one very clear thing about Dyson. He doesn't change or grow in any way. Despite all of his talk about perfection, Dyson is still far from perfect. He has this demeanor of superiority during these episodes, like he's been perfected by Clue. But while his face might be flawless physically, mentally, this is just a mask. Clue might have fixed Dyson's face, but the scar is still there. It's just Dyson refuses to acknowledge and move on from it. He was consumed by his hate toward the ISOs, and it pushed him down a dark path that he can never come back from. He aided in the near extinction of the ISOs, and even after all this time, he still believes he's fighting for the right side, that it was the right course of action to have done what he's done. His hatred has turned him into a monster. He refuses to let his scars heal. His face might have been fixed, but he is still emotionally scarred. He will never properly let go of his hate towards the ISOs, and his scars have consumed him almost entirely. And during this arc, we can see how Dyson's influence was pushing Tron to also be consumed by his scars. Tron was going down a very similar path as Dyson because of his scars. Dyson ruined his life, and Tron wanted to inflict the pain he was delivered onto him. He let his anger and animosity towards Dyson direct his actions, turning him into someone he wasn't. He neglected his pupil, his health, and his morals because of this boiling hatred he had for Dyson. The way his scars overtake his face throughout these episodes work as a perfect visual representation of how Tron is being consumed by his past and hatred, just like Dyson. I fully believe that if Tron de-resed Dyson here, he would have never been the same. His anger would either overtake him and turn him into something darker, or he would have died from his wounds. The difference between Dyson and Tron is one thing that programs have struggled with the most in this series: growth. Tron remembers the hope he has in the revolution, and remembers his friendship with Beck. Despite this burning anger he has, this intense bloodlust to kill Dyson, Tron doesn't want to be controlled by his hate. De-resing Dyson isn't going to bring back all of the people he's lost. It's not going to erase the years of being alone. It's not going to make his scars disappear. Unlike Dyson, Tron's scars are still visible, but he chooses to live with them rather than lower himself to Dyson's level, because covering up your scars and refusing to acknowledge them will never heal them. The pain will still be there, nothing would change. Tron is moving on from his past and choosing to let his scars heal, while Dyson's scars have completely ruined him. So he lets Dyson go and leaves him behind as he slowly walks away. Tron chooses to let his scars heal rather than to let them fester. They're still there, but he isn't going to let them control him, and I think that's just poetically brilliant writing. The rest of the episode wraps up pretty nicely. Tron returns to his energy chamber to rejuvenate him, and he apologizes to Beck, thanking him for reminding him what it means to be Tron. Dyson, meanwhile, flies back to Clue's warship, where he informs him that Tron lives. This scene also confirms that Dyson was never really there for the satellites. He was there to see if the rumors surrounding Tron's return were true. Clue tells him to keep this information solely between the two of them, and the episode ends. The Scars arc of Tron Uprising is by far one of my all-time favorite arcs of any 3D animated show. Not only does it do a phenomenal job at developing Tron as a character, but it also gave us someone to parallel him. Dyson is such a good dark mirror to Tron, being a former friend who's turned against him. In a way, Dyson is to Tron what Clue is to Flynn. Both programs ended up betraying their friends in order to take over the grid and wipe out the ISOs, and both act as a dark mirror to the heroes, representing what they could be if they went down darker paths. It's really cool writing. There's just a couple more things I want to talk about before we end off the video, so let's quickly head into one more section, shall we? Dyson appears in 2 more episodes of Tron Uprising, though these appearances don't have much of a focus on him, so we'll go over them quickly. Dyson's next appearance would be 3 episodes later in the 13th episode of Tron Uprising, The Stranger. The episode is split between the perspective of Beck, who's busy being stuck in the Outlands, and Abel, a mysterious ally of Tron from his past and Beck's boss at his mechanic job. Tron recently discovered that Dyson is in a nearby city of Purgos, working on a mysterious weapon. Since Beck is missing, Abel takes his place and goes instead to find out what Dyson is up to. During his time investigating the weapon, Abel overhears Dyson talking to a blackguard and tries to get more information, though Dyson immediately realized he was there and confronted him. He asks for Abel's disc, but is interrupted by the foreman. He then threatens him by saying that he is just as replaceable as any of the programs in his service before leaving, pretty much confirming that his little joke he made against Tesla is something he probably would have followed through on in a different situation. Later on in the episode, Abel tries to slip away to see what Clue's forces were working on, but is confronted by Dyson. He says that he never did get to see Abel's disc and shuts the gate behind Abel to trap him in the building. Dyson calls out a line of blackguards and once again asks him for his disc with a smile. But before he could get it, Tron blows up the gate and helps Abel fight off the blackguards in a pretty cool fight. Dyson tells the guards to protect the device and runs off. After the guards are defeated, it's revealed that the weapon that they were building was a massive recognizer. That pretty much ends Dyson's contribution to this episode. Like I said, nothing special. Dyson's final appearance in the series is in the final episode of the show, episode 19, Terminal. Dyson appears alongside Clue in the last 20 seconds of the episode, where Clue's forces descend on Argon to instill his rule. The series ends with these last 2 lines.
We're entering Argon now, sir.
Good.
While this is unfortunately the ending of the show, I also have a special surprise for all of you. A few years ago, a video was released showcasing a storyboard for the first episode of Tron Uprising's scrapped 2nd season. In the one scene we got, we watch as Tesla bows before Clue and Dyson as he apologizes for failing to catch the renegade. Clue tells him to not beat himself up, as he was asking for perfection. Clue talks for a moment about the pair of spheres he always carries with him, noting how they represent true perfection. He then drops them to the ground and asks Tesla to pick them up. Clue asks him, how would you make an army perfect? And before Tesla could answer, Dyson slices off his arms. Dyson then answers Clue's question, saying by changing the hands of leadership. With this, the storyboard ends, which also ends all of the extra content we have involving Tron Uprising and Dyson. I cannot state enough how much it sucks that this show never got a second season. It's obvious that they had some fantastic plans by involving Clue more, and so many characters had the chance to be developed. A part of me is still holding out hope that someday Uprising will be brought back. It's gotten a resurgence of popularity after all. Maybe it's still possible to see some kind of continuation. Tron Ares may have underperformed in theaters, but it did very well on streaming. If anything, Tron seems to fit perfectly as a streaming series. All we can do is hope, but I am still thankful for what we got. Regardless, that wraps up all of the content we have involving Dyson. So now, let's take all of our thoughts and discuss. So, who really was Dyson? Well, he's a character that is incapable of positive growth. He was at one point someone good, someone who protected the innocent programs of the grid from danger, but after sustaining his injury in the line of duty, he placed all of the anger and pain he felt wrongfully onto the shoulders of the ISOs. The tragedy of Dyson's character is how he let his negative experiences define him. He chose to mask his scars rather than deal with them. He never attempted to let them heal and to see things from a different perspective. He let his scars turn him into a monster, a sinister villain who thinks all of the evil he's done was the right thing to do. And what's truly scary is that he was affirmed in his stance and his beliefs throughout most of his life, gaining power and creating a lavish life for himself by siding with Clue. He almost pushed Tron into becoming just like him, giving him scars representing anger and pain. Tron was very close to letting his scars turn him into something he wasn't, but ultimately Dyson failed to make Tron like him. Until now, Tron didn't really have an antagonist for himself. Kevin Flynn has Clue, Beck has Tesla, heck, even Anon had Abraxas. But Dyson works perfectly as a villain since a majority of past foes are meant to mirror their hero. Clue is obsessed with perfection while Flynn understands that it's impossible. Beck wants to free his city from a dictatorship while Tesla wants to hold on to any power that he has. And both Dyson and Tron have received scars from their past, with Tron moving on from them and Dyson being completely absorbed by them. Keep in mind, all of this characterization and backstory is being told in only 2 half-hour episodes. It's incredible how much the writers were able to fit into this two-parter. The world of Tron has so many complex characters. You could really read into them in so many different ways. Dyson is legitimately just the tip of the iceberg. But as of right now, this is the end of Dyson's story. He doesn't appear in Tron Legacy, so he doesn't have a definitive ending. But personally, I think it's pretty likely that Clue ended up de-resing Dyson after he repurposed Tron into Rinsler. After all, Tron is the best fighter on the grid. Clue would have no reason for Dyson now that he had Rinsler. While this is just a theory, I think it would fit well in how Dyson joined the side of someone he thought was doing the best for the grid, when in reality, his rule only ended up nearly destroying it, and following him potentially resulted in his own de-resing. But as of right now, Dyson's story is over, a program that chose to mask his scars instead of healing from them. Thank you all so much for watching. This script has been sitting nearly finished for a while now, and I figured it would be a good idea to finally get to making the video, especially with how much better I've gotten at making character analysis stuff. I really love making stuff like this, but it requires a ton of effort and research, so if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below with a character you'd like to see me cover on this series. If I see a lot of support on this video, I will absolutely work on more Tron videos like this. I'd love to talk more about the series. With that being said, I'm gonna go and watch Tron Legacy again. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all later. Bye bye!